Hello, I'm Adam Newman. This is my official YouTube channel. Please subscribe and support them. The Young and the Restless spoilers. Nobody in Genoa City was prepared for what happened next. For days, uncertainty had hung over everyone connected to Nikki Newman. Rumors spread through every corner of the city. Questions multiplied faster than answers. The hospital corridors had become gathering places for fear, hope, anxiety, and desperation. Family members waited endlessly for updates. Friends prayed for good news. Enemies quietly wondered whether this latest crisis would permanently weaken one of the most powerful families in town. Then, finally, everything changed. Nikki opened her eyes. The moment should have been simple. It should have been a victory. It should have been a celebration. Instead, it became the beginning of a storm that threatened to tear apart everything people thought they knew. The first person who reacted was not Victor. It was not Victoria. It was not Nick. It was Matt. For a brief moment, nobody understood why the young man looked completely overwhelmed. The relief on his face went far beyond concern for a friend or sympathy for a patient. There was something deeper happening inside him. Something raw. Something personal. His entire body trembled. His eyes filled with tears. Years of pain, confusion, loneliness, and unanswered questions suddenly seemed to crash into him all at once. Because after spending so much of his life searching for the truth, after following one lead after another, after enduring disappointment after disappointment, Matt believed he had finally found the answer he had been chasing. He believed he had found his family. And at the center of that discovery stood Nikki Newman. For months, whispers had circulated in the shadows. Some dismissed them as nonsense. Others treated them as dangerous speculation. But the rumors refused to disappear. There were stories suggesting that Matt's mysterious past might be connected to the Newman family. There were suggestions that long-buried secrets had never truly remained buried. There were even shocking claims that Nikki herself might be Matt's biological mother. Most people considered the idea impossible, absurd, ridiculous. Yet the more evidence surfaced, the harder it became to ignore. Every new clue seemed to point in the same direction. Every revelation created more questions. And now, standing beside Nikki's hospital bed, Matt no longer cared about proof. He cared about something else. Hope. The kind of hope that terrifies people because losing it would be unbearable. As Nikki slowly regained awareness, confusion filled her eyes. The room seemed unfamiliar. The faces around her appeared distant. For several long seconds, she struggled to understand where she was. Then, she looked directly at Matt. Time seemed to stop. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even breathed. Something passed between them in that moment. Recognition. Emotion. A connection that neither of them could explain logically. Matt felt it instantly. Nikki felt it too. The intensity of the moment shocked everyone watching. And then, the impossible happened. Matt rushed forward. Years of restraint vanished. Years of uncertainty disappeared. Years of emotional walls collapsed. He wrapped his arms around Nikki and held her tightly. It was not the embrace of a friend. It was not the embrace of an admirer. It was the embrace of someone who believed he had finally found the missing piece of his soul. Tears streamed down his face. His emotions overwhelmed him completely. For so long he had lived with questions. For so long he had wondered who he truly was. For so long he had dreamed about finding the family that had always been missing from his life. Now, in that hospital room, it felt as though every painful year had finally led him to this moment. And then came the moment that sent shockwaves through everyone present. Nikki began crying. Not ordinary tears. Not polite tears. Not the controlled emotions people expected from someone like Nikki Newman. These were tears of pure, emotional devastation. She clung to Matt with a desperation that stunned everyone. Her entire body shook. She held him as though she feared losing him again. As though fate had stolen decades from them. As though she was trying to recover years that could never be returned. The sight was heartbreaking. It was beautiful. And it was terrifying. Because if the rumors were true, nothing would ever be the same again. Victor Newman stood frozen. Few people had ever seen Victor genuinely afraid. Angry? Certainly. Ruthless? Without question. Protective? Always. But afraid? Almost never. Yet the expression on his face revealed genuine panic. For once, Victor looked like a man losing control. And that terrified him, because Victor understood consequences better than anyone. He immediately recognized what this revelation could mean. If Matt truly was Nikki's son, then a new Newman had suddenly entered the picture. Not a distant relative, not an outsider, a blood connection, a legitimate member of the family, a man with claims, a man with rights, a man whose existence could reshape the balance of power inside the Newman dynasty. Victor's mind immediately began calculating every possible outcome. How would Victoria react? How would Nick respond? What would this mean for family dynamics? What would happen to the business? What secrets might be uncovered next? Most importantly, what else had Nikki been hiding? The questions came faster than answers. And for a man who built his empire on certainty, uncertainty felt like poison. What made the situation even more complicated was the emotional reality unfolding before everyone's eyes. Matt was not behaving like someone chasing money. He was not demanding power. He was not seeking influence. His reaction appeared completely genuine. That fact made the situation even harder to dismiss. If he were a manipulator, Victor could fight him. If he were a liar, Victor could expose him. If he were a fraud, Victor could destroy him. But if Matt was telling the truth, if Matt genuinely believed he had finally found his mother, then the situation became infinitely more dangerous. Because emotions are far more difficult to defeat than enemies. Watching Nikki and Matt together created a disturbing sense of authenticity. Their connection felt real. Too real. Every embrace, every tear, every glance, every emotional reaction seemed to reinforce the possibility that something extraordinary had occurred. The room became filled with conflicting emotions. Some people felt joy. Others felt confusion. Many felt fear. Because reunions are rarely as simple as they appear. Families do not magically heal because long-lost relatives suddenly appear. Old wounds still exist. Old mistakes still matter. Old secrets still have consequences. And the Newman family possessed more secrets than most families could imagine. Personally, this is where the story becomes especially fascinating. Many people would expect the emotional reunion to represent the ending of a journey. In reality, it would only be the beginning. Finding family does not solve problems. It creates new ones, sometimes bigger ones, sometimes far more painful ones. The moment Nikki accepted Matt into her arms, an entirely new chapter began. Questions about the past would inevitably emerge. Questions about decisions made years earlier. Questions about hidden relationships. Questions about why the truth remained concealed for so long. Those questions would not disappear. In fact, they would grow louder. And eventually, somebody would demand answers. Victor understood that, which is why his panic continued to grow. The more he watched Nikki and Matt embrace, the more he realized that events were moving beyond his control. For perhaps the first time in a very long time, Victor Newman could not dictate the outcome. He could not negotiate with emotion. He could not intimidate biology. He could not erase a family connection. And that reality frightened him more than any business rival ever could. Meanwhile, Nikki appeared completely consumed by emotion. The years seemed to vanish from her face. Her tears continued. Her grip on Matt never loosened. Whether driven by memory, instinct, guilt, love, or some combination of all four, she looked like a woman experiencing both overwhelming joy and unbearable regret simultaneously. The tragedy of lost time hung heavily over the room. Every tear seemed to represent a year that could never be recovered. Every embrace seemed to acknowledge a lifetime of missed opportunities. Every emotional glance carried the weight of countless unanswered questions. The reunion felt miraculous, but it also felt tragic. Because even if they had found each other at last, they could never reclaim the years that had been stolen from them. And perhaps that was the most heartbreaking realization of all. As the hospital room filled with emotion, one truth became impossible to ignore. The Newman family had just entered the most dangerous chapter of its history. Not because of an enemy, not because of a corporate war, not because of a criminal conspiracy, but because of family. Because sometimes the most explosive secrets are not hidden in business records or legal documents. Sometimes they are hidden in blood. And when those secrets finally emerge, they have the power to change everything.